Okay, so what you're going to need today are 2 jack stands, a funnel, the correct size wrench that loosens the bolt to your oil pan. You're also going to need a socket and a wrench for the correct size bolts on your wheels to take the wheel off. It's also nice to have one of these adapters for a drill so I can actually just take the bolt off the wheel easily. A breaker bar comes in handy for those pesky bolts that do not want to come off. And then you're going to need a torque wrench. And then of course we're going to need an oil filter. Okay, let's get started and get the car jacked up in the air. Make sure you find the jack point that's on your vehicle in the front. Car jack points vary from car to car, so make sure that you look up in your car manual where your jack points are. We're going to put our jack stands in place underneath the jack points, and we're going to lower the car onto the jack stands. Alright, so the oil filter is down on the passenger side, deep down behind the engine block. So what I'm going to do is take off the wheel to get it easier. Forgot to mention, you're also going to need an oil pan to catch your oil. Next, we want to get the oil filter loose. So here I went through the top of the engine bay to get the oil filter loose. Then I reached from the bottom to turn the filter the rest of the way off. Once you got the oil filter off, you want to set it on your oil pan so it can drip into there for disposal later. Now, oil is really bad for the environment, so make sure that you dispose of it properly by taking it to a designated facility. Now we're going to install the new oil filter. Now the oil filter has a gasket. We want to make sure that this gasket is well lubed before putting it back on the car. A side note, the gaskets often come off and remain stuck on the car. So make sure that the gasket is on the old oil filter and not still stuck on the car. Now we're going to prep the new oil filter using the new oil. My car requires 5W20. So to prep the new oil filter, we will pour some oil into the filter and then make sure that the gasket is covered light with the new oil. Be sure to wipe down the oil filter on the outside just to make sure that you have good grip on it when you put it back in. So now we're ready to put things back together. Put the new oil filter and tighten it down. Make sure that it is nice and secure. I usually will tighten it fully until I feel it stop, and then I'll just do a little quarter turn. Okay, now we're going to put the bolt back on the oil reservoir underneath the car. It's best to use a torque wrench with the correct torque specs. You don't see me doing it in this video. It's recommended and ideal that you use the torque wrench to get the right torque on there. Okay, now we're just putting everything back together. Put our wheel back on, tighten lug nuts down, enough so that we can torque it to spec later. We're going to remove all the tools and oil pan from underneath the car as well. Okay, so jack the car up and remove the jack stands. Now we can lower the car. Grab your torque wrench and torque the wheel lug nuts to spec. Alright, so now I'm going to see how much oil is still in the reservoir. What you do is you pull out the dipstick, wipe it down, stick it back in and pull it out and check it. Okay, pause. We're going to stop here and look at how this measurement works. As you can see on the dipstick, there are 2 dots. The one on the left and the one on the right. As you can see, the oil is below the one on the right, which sounds about right because we just emptied the pan. So we want to fill it up to where the first dot is. No more than that, not too much less. So that's the range we want to be in, and that's going to be our aim. My car takes about 5 quarts, so we're going to fill her up. You're going to want to make sure to do another oil level check before you complete off the fill, just to make sure that you're not going over the limit. Alright, everything looks good. Just going to wipe her all down and close it up, and we're done.